The anime begins with a 16-year-old boy, Shiki Tsubasa, moving to a new city called Kitami in Hokkaido because of his father's job. He arrives by taxi and notices the falling snow. He receives a message from his father apologizing for not being able to pick him up due to work, as Tsubasa arrived earlier than expected. Tsubasa assures his father that it's okay and he can make his way home alone. He spots a sign indicating the arrival of Kitami and asks the driver to stop, thinking it's close enough to walk. As he steps out of the car, Tsubasa is impressed by the completely empty and silent place, feeling a sense of freedom compared to Tokyo where he used to live. He also notices the pure air of Hokkaido but realizes the freezing temperature, experiencing a winter harsher than he's accustomed to. Now his only option is to walk through the snow to reach his home. Tsubasa regrets his father's decision to move during winter, and to make matters worse, his phone is running out of battery. Suddenly, Tsubasa notices a girl nearby wearing a skirt despite the cold. He is surprised at the difference in their clothing, as he is freezing despite being bundled up. The girl notices Tsubasa looking at her, and he takes the opportunity to ask for directions to his home. Approaching her with his phone, he realizes she has a red nose from the cold. After pointing out the direction, the girl mentions it's a 3-hour walk, wondering why he's on foot in such weather. Tsubasa is surprised that a neighboring district is so far away within the same city. She explains that Kitami is vast, having the largest territory of all cities in the province. Tsubasa regrets getting out of the car without assessing the situation but thinks he can call another taxi. The girl explains that taxis don't come to their location and it would take at least 30 minutes to get one by phone. Feeling stranded, Tsubasa thinks he's in trouble, but the girl suggests waiting for a bus with her, which would take him to his destination in 5 minutes. The girl realizes Tsubasa is not from there and he explains he just moved from Tokyo, surprising her that someone would leave a city like Tokyo for a place like Kitami, assuming he finds the people there tacky. Tsubasa notices the girl's accent and explains he moved for family reasons, finding Kitami a peaceful place. He reflects on being bullied in Tokyo for not being popular, but feels relieved that no one in the new city knows him as Brega, tacky. Observing Tsubasa, the girl comments that he seems like a nice guy. Later, she gets excited to discover they are the same age and will attend the same school, Hokkaido High School. She becomes overly familiar, leaving Tsubasa embarrassed. He thinks he has never met a girl like her in Tokyo and wonders if all girls in Hokkaido are like her. At that moment, the girl starts calling him, but he is distracted and doesn't hear. To get his attention, she playfully puts some snow inside his coat, finding his reaction to the cold amusing. Tsubasa notices her laughing, impressed by her beauty, and accidentally comments on it aloud, making the girl blush. The bus arrives, and before she boards, Tsubasa asks for her name. She replies that she is Fuyuki Minami and says goodbye. Tsubasa is thrilled to have moved to that city, but realizes he should have boarded the bus with her. Now he has to wait for the next bus in the cold. At the same time, he freaks out for losing his transportation. Minami thinks it would be cool if both of them were in the same class. The next day, Tsubasa goes to his new school, where he introduces himself to his class, explaining that he moved from Tokyo the day before. Then the teacher shows him where he should sit, and the boy goes to his desk while searching for Minami. As he doesn't see her anywhere, he thinks they must have gone to different classes, feeling a bit sad about it. However, Tsubasa tries to cheer himself up by thinking that he has always liked serious girls with dark hair, and that he was just impressed because he had never met a girl like Minami before. But at that moment, she enters the room and gets super excited to see Tsubasa ignoring the teacher calling her attention for being late. Not only were they in the same class, but they also sat next to each other, making Tsubasa wonder if something as cliché as that coincidence happened in real life. Then Minami finally learns Tsubasa's name and says he has a beautiful name. She then calls him by his first name, making the guy nervous with all that formality, as only his family and friends call him that. And so the class goes on, but Tsubasa shivers from the cold as if that room were a freezer. He wonders how everyone is attending class in that freezing environment, but realizes that his classmates are wearing jackets and blankets. Tsubasa shivers from the cold and thinks that he might catch a cold that way when Minami nudges him and offers her blanket, explaining that she usually uses two because she catches a cold very easily, but that at that moment she was warm with just one. Tsubasa accepts the borrowed clothes and puts it on his lap, warming up instantly because the blanket was already warm from Minami's body. This makes Tsubasa realize that he also had the girl's scent, bringing a sensation as if she herself were hugging him, but he fights against that thought and tries to control himself. After the class ends, Tsubasa returns the blanket to Minami and thanks her for lending it to him. But out of nowhere, the girl smells the clothes. He thinks it's because it was stinking and says he can wash it for her, but Minami explains that she actually smelled the blanket because it had their combined scent. Then Minami says that there is a way for Tsubasa to thank her for her help, as she had no one to accompany her after school. And so he takes Minami to the train station, once again getting nervous with their proximity. On the way, out of the blue, the girl asks if Tsubasa has a girlfriend. The guy is surprised and denies it in a way that amuses Minami. Then she asks where he usually goes for dates in Tokyo. Tsubasa mentions 2 places despite never having had a date, and the girl is surprised that he didn't include Shibuya, a place where many people go to buy clothes. However, he says it's better places where you can eat and stroll, but he says this without mentioning the fact that he simply has never done that and read it on the internet. Minami comments that Tokyo has many more options for places to hang out than Kitami, which leads Tsubasa to ask where she usually goes. But the girl explains that during winter, it's too cold to leave the house, so they just visit each other's homes. At that moment, the two arrive at the train station, and Minami thanks Tsubasa for accompanying her there. Then he says goodbye to her, but before leaving, she asks if he would like to come to her house the next day since they didn't have class, as she wanted to know more about Tokyo. Tsubasa gets nervous with that invitation, but agrees to go to her house, leaving Minami excited. And so the next day, Tsubasa goes to a girl's house for the first time in his life, and it's only his 3rd day in that city, making him even more nervous about the whole situation. He rings the doorbell, thinking that if his family knew he was going to a girl's house, he would be in trouble. Then Minami enters the intercom and opens the door for Tsubasa, making him wonder about the security of the place. As soon as he walks in, Tsubasa begins to take off his shoes. She welcomes him and says he's lucky that his parents aren't home. This makes the guy nervous and confused about what she meant. Later, Minami shows Tsubasa around her room and he notices how warm the place is. She explains that the room has a large heater, along with underfloor heating, unlike his own room, which is always cold with just a small heater. With this, Tsubasa understands that she mentioned he's lucky his parents aren't home. Otherwise, they would have to stay in his chilly room. Tsubasa thinks that nothing strange will happen, and the girl decides to take advantage of the guy's distraction to accidentally bump her foot into him and give him a scare. Then Minami asks what they could do, and because of that, she remembers to offer him a drink. She goes to the kitchen and asks what Tsubasa would like to have. As he replies that anything is fine, she brings a drink called katsujin, explaining that she has liked it since childhood. He tries it and realizes it's similar to yogurt. Meanwhile, Minami gets some for herself too, but ends up spilling it on her clothes. So she goes to change but comes back wearing an outfit that makes Tsubasa more nervous than he already was. To distract himself, he quickly shows that he brought a movie for them to watch together. And so they start watching the movie since neither of them had seen it before. However, in the middle of it, Minami ends up falling asleep. Tsubasa wonders why she's acting so carelessly, sleeping like that near a guy, but he thinks it must be because she doesn't see him that way. Sometime later, Minami wakes up and asks about the movie. Tsubasa explains that it had already ended and he didn't want to wake her, but he leaves the Blu-ray for her to watch. Then Minami realizes she's covered with his jacket, and Tsubasa explains that despite the room being warm, he was afraid she might get cold, so he thought it was better to cover her with something. Minami returns, the jacket still half asleep, and Tsubasa says goodbye, explaining that it's getting late and he has to go back home. Only after Tsubasa leaves does the girl wake up. She runs after him and apologizes, feeling bad for falling asleep and leaving him alone. Tsubasa only cares that she went out in that outfit and covers Minami with his scarf to prevent her from catching a cold, making the girl blush. Minami thanks him and he offers his coat as well, but she explains that she always dresses that way when going out quickly. Tsubasa is relieved to see that she's fine, but unlike the girl, he starts sneezing from the cold. Then Minami explains that she's hungry and starts pulling him towards a place called Sycamore, saying that the meal is on her as a way to apologize for sleeping during the movie. Next week, we'll have more of this anime as soon as the new episode is released, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the like button below to support this video. See you guys.